As far as what you do with Harrison in the condition that he's in,
Right.
what is your tack on that?
You know, I'm going to find out. I just walked by the trainer's room. He had ice on his shoulder, so I got to figure out what happened with that and get you the update on the shoulder. So he was smiling, so I don't. Did you have it when you came in here? Did he say about shoulder?
No.
No. So we'll find out on that. But so yeah, right now it's rest. We got, you know, Ron is one of the best. 30+ years of experience, you know, as an athletic trainer. So, you know, over the years, he's, you know, shown the ability with quick turnarounds to get the athletes the treatment they need to be up to speed and perform as close to full strength as possible. And also, as you guys know, who follow this from year to year, we always take the more cautious approach and don't ever risk the long-term health or jeopardize an athlete's future by trying to rush him back too soon to get a W. And with that said, D'Angelo has been a player that's, you know, shown the ability to bounce back quick and to absorb a hit or, you know, get to the other side of an injury and be able to compete at a high level. So, as I mentioned after the game, you know, Ron, our team doctors, and D'Angelo provide me the direction of how we're going to go.
He obviously doesn't make any excuses, and he's just, hey, I had an off night, whatever,
Yeah.
and he smiles, and
Yeah.
he's in good spirits. But I mean, if he's not at 100%, which it honestly seems like he is just from how he's talking and moving around, I mean, does he need to make any adjustments in game?
Sure.
You know, because obviously
Always.
you got to shoot with your legs. I mean, there's some
Absolutely.
things that,
Yeah.
you know.
Yep. I think that's, you know, kind of the evolution of a player is, you know, being able to show, you know, various dimensions to your game. And whether it's, you know, helping us on the boards, which he's done at different times this year, or playmaking, you know, with the heavy help, and when he's under duress because of the way opponents scheme defensively, he has the ability to become a playmaker for us and distribute the ball to his teammates. And this is a year where, you know, we have 5 players, really 6 players, capable of getting double figures on any night, and that balance makes us tougher to prepare for. So while we want him to be aggressive and put his eyeballs on the rim with every catch, make defenses honor that, which opens up you know, elements of our offense. We also know he's capable of driving the ball, and when that aggressive help comes, find a teammate. And so I think of the Villanova point guard who came in, and we were putting heavy heat, driving him off the three-point line, and he had 10 assists, no turnovers. You know, so he took, you know, he surveyed our defensive schemes, and his counter, like a chess match, was to become a playmaker for that night, and didn't score as much, but helped his team win convincingly against us in the Garden. So, and D'Angelo, you know, played a Princeton-style offense in high school, and that was one of the things that intrigued me about him. Was I first saw him during the summertime, where he was, I think I might have seen at 45. The first game I saw him play, I think it was 45 points in Vegas, and naturally his scoring jumped out. But then when I went and watched his high school team practice and play, because they were running that Princeton-style offense, I got to see his velocity cutting, his understanding of spacing in terms of how to replace when the ball was not in his hand after a cut or after a dribble penetration, and you know, just all the ball handling skills that were on display. I think he's improved his left hand from year to year. He was mostly all right, you know, in the early stage of his career, but he's starting to show the ability to go to his left and create off the bounce. So But when you run that prison-style offense, you know, it's a real advantage to recruit a kid from that style of play because it's predicated on all the offensive fundamentals that go into playing good basketball: spacing, cutting, screening, timing, passing, catching, and then when you add the ability for him to shoot, it's what makes him so difficult to guard. So we want him to use all those skills he possesses and to be aware and read, you know, how teams early in the game are guarding him. With that said, there's going to be nights where you just miss, or nights where you're injured, and so you're not at full strength, and you need to modify or adjust your approach accordingly. You know.
I mean, a lot of times, you know, the guys come in and listen, they just got to get to the next game and treat it no differently. But there was a sense of excitement of the opportunity ahead here, obviously, potentially score a huge win here. I guess, how have you talked to them about the opportunity here and you know what this would do?
You know, well, I think for starters, you know, there's an element of anticipation, you know, about this game that's inherent without me having to amplify it any more than it already is. And so, you know, sometimes you play a team in the non-conference that you know is very dangerous and capable of beating us because as a coach, you know your peers in the business and you study the trends. But a young person may not be aware of, you know, how good a team St. Mary's is, or that they're as successful program as there is in the West Coast of the last decade. So a game like that, you're a little more concerned about, you know, your players' mindset, or an NJIT. You know, last year when we watched on video, we were aware that they were really dangerous, and of course this year we knew they were even more dangerous, and Michigan found out the hard way. But we were concerned about that game. They had us 14 down 2 years ago, I think, on our home court, and this game was a battle, and we were able to pull away late. So, but when Duke is coming to town, people understand inherently it's a significant game, and then with the added dimension of, you know, Coach Krzyzewski going for his 1000th win at Madison Square Garden, you know, the anticipation is palpable. But if anything, you know, it's even more important to stay with our routines because coaches and athletes are creatures of habits and routines, and you don't want to depart dramatically from the regular drum roll into a game because that becomes dangerous, you know. And so that doesn't mean we don't modify a different stage of the season like we do for any game, or with an upcoming opponent, adjustments you make, or based on our injuries or personnel, there's things we have to be mindful of. But the overall drum roll into Sunday's game will be the same as it's been for this group from the time they came here as freshmen. And then certain games naturally have more significance because of the media coverage, because of storied programs clashing, you know, and then this added element in terms of the historical milestone that Coach K is chasing.
I think this is the 6th time in your career as a head coach that you're facing Duke, or
Yeah.
sixth. Is there something about preparing for Duke and Coach K that's different than other coaches you faced in your career?
Yes, but the same, like, in other words, when you play programs with Hall of Fame coaches, it means they have the best personnel in the country on an annual basis. And that's what makes them Hall of Fame coaches. They have great personnel, and they're good coaches, and they've won a lot of games. So, you know, similar to going against Lute Olson's teams at Arizona for 12 years out west, and going against Roy Williams' teams a number of times. You understand that you're facing a team that has great firepower, that's well coached, and you know, has set the bar very high in terms of a gold standard of success. But really, it's us demonstrating the ability to sustain our effort and our execution and our fight for 40 minutes of play and a 2-hour window. And, you know, similar to what we did at Syracuse earlier this year, the Carrier Dome, or in Providence, or at Providence. Now, you know, back on our home court in the Garden, you know, when we're successful, it's our ability to impose our preferred style of play and then to sustain through the punching and counter-punching a level of play that gives us an opportunity to win a game.
That number, 1,000 wins, does that seem astronomical to you as a coach? And can you give us some perspective maybe on just how unattainable that might be to other coaches besides, you know, Coach K?
Yeah, I mean, it's, there's, you know, unicorns and Haley's Comet, you know, in different walks of life. You know, I think Tony Bennett crooning a tune in his 80s. You know, I think I saw Tony Bennett perform in Southern California with my parents. It was my father's birthday, and it was Tony Bennett and his daughter, and they were performing together. But it was Tony Bennett's 80th birthday, and was thinking about how, you know, the run. You're talking about decade after decade after decade after decade of performing at that highest level. You know, Johnny Carson, if we're going to go to television. You know, night after night, giving that monologue and delivering on that stage, and that show, you know, and so I think, you know, in Coach Wooden, you know, Dean Smith, you know, but there's, you know, he's done it, you know, longer and more successfully than anybody in the history of basketball. So that's what separates or puts him at the top.
It was brought up that Chris seems to have taken himself up to a different level. How important do you think he'll be for you and your team against Duke?
Chris O'Beck?
Yep.
Yeah, I think, you know, no more this game than the Marquette game or the next game, but just across the board, you know, we need Chris O'Beck to perform at a high level. And when he's playing with confidence offensively and providing, you know, the resistance at the rim that he does defensively, it enhances our chances of being successful and being able to win games, and in the long haul, you know, be able to do something special come March. And but I think, you know, this as we watch this team develop, you know, when we've been together, you know, I mean, we had that stretch to start conference where, you know, Rashid is out, then returns, but we lose Jamal. We get Jamal back, and then D'Angelo's been injured, you know, so that's why we're 2-4, and we hit some choppy waters here, and could easily be, you know, 4-2. Are we 2-3? 2-4, right? Yeah. So you know, we could easily be. You could flip that. We could be you know, 4-2 or, you know, 3-3. It'd be a stretch to say 5-1. You know, this league is actually no one's 5-1, right? First place is 4-2, now 5-2. So people are just, this league is just, we saw again Seton Hall, Paul beating Seton Hall. I mean, it's this, you know. So the people I know build a case for the Big 12, but I think this is the deepest league in the country, and the scores are indicating that. When you look at what this league did against the rest of the non-conferences, but that's fine. If it's the Big 12 and us as the two top teams, that's, you know, I can respect that. But after those two, the Big East and the Big 12, I don't see a third conference. Maybe right at the top, there's a couple leagues that may have teams that are better than our teams at the top, but that'll all work itself out, you know, in the NCAA tournament when teams get to face each other from various leagues.
Steve, in terms of Chris and this matchup with 0-4, I mean, we're talking about a guy who is certainly in a small conversation for the National Player of the Year. In what way could a good performance from Chris not only help St. John's on that day, but possibly help Chris in a sort of national recognition?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think Chris playing well is important for our purposes and objectives, and, you know, because Chris wants to continue to develop his game and have a bright future that we know he's capable of in basketball. But for this particular game or matchup, as you guys know, we play so many different defenses, and we rotate, various players. Like the St. Mary's kid who's a 7-footer, we chose to go with Dom on him, and we were much more effective. He completely shut his water off in the second half. We held them to 14 points in the second half. So it'll be, and with Christmas and McCullough at Syracuse, we decided just to drop 5 guys down on the post. We took our chances of them Cooney with everyone else shooting the ball, and we're fortunate they never caught fire. So it won't be a scenario we say, Chris, you got him. It's not that kind of, it won't be that type of matchup. We'll give a variety of looks to keep Duke off balance and not allow, our objective is to not allow a big fellow to dominate us. Easier said than done, but we faced a lot of other good big men and good teams. And this group in particular, they faced that Louisville team that won the national title. They faced the UConn team that won the national title. They've faced really good personnel throughout their career. So, they know that we're going to scheme in a way that gives us the best opportunity to be competitive. And while Chris is going to be central to the basket area and being a rim protector, how we deploy him and use him and how we bring second defenders, into play, and how we mix our zone and man and our trapping and our pressing into play to try and keep Duke off balance. Again, easier said than done. That's the idea.
Do you have one last question? Switching to Phil Green and sort of his evolution as a player, it's been fun to watch. Just try and describe how far that he's come in his 4 years.
Yeah, I think the very first visit that Phil came, the first time Phil came to our campus and was able to sit down, spend time with him, what jumped out was his ability to listen. And he was so intent, as he is now, in every time out or any conversation that you have with him. It's unusual in this generation, this era of teaching and working with young people. He ranked right at the top. Earl Watson, comes to mind when I look back on my UCLA career. The best listener that I coached, and it's I don't think it's a coincidence that he ended up playing 13 years in the NBA. Had an outstanding career at UCLA, a Hall of Famer at UCLA, and then 13 years in the league, and then within a week or two of him being out of the league, was picked up by the San Antonio Spurs as someone they want now in their organization to grew as a coach or in the NBA management. So and Phil has that. It's just an interesting, it's a trait, it's a virtue, it's a gift to be an outstanding listener. It's probably the most undervalued trait, and yet the most important one that profoundly changes, who we are as people. We always forget that listening is how we learn. It's not by speaking. And the greatest listeners are the ones that achieve most in life. So, just with Phil Green, it's about listening, and then his confidence from year to year has grown. He's turned up the volume in terms of communicating and shaping, participating in what we're doing as a basketball team and program. And on the floor, he's our quiet assassin in big games that steps up and torches the nets or comes up with big plays. And he's done it hampered with injuries. His toughness to fight through the torn hip labrum 1 year before he finally had surgery, and then even after the surgery, it hasn't been easy on him. And yet he gives us everything he has when he's out there, even though we know he's playing in great pain.